Welcome to Being Intrepid, where each conversation is a front row seat to how bold leaders are reimagining learning to meet the moment and shape what's next. I'm your host, Sam Herring. For the past 25 years, I've been building and leading learning companies to help people grow and organizations thrive. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Amy Happ, Director of Leadership Development and Learning Innovation at Grant Thornton. Now, Grant Thornton is a professional services firm that focuses on tax, audit and assurance, and advisory services, and they serve over 135 countries. Amy has decades of experience as a learning leader. She's worked both with top learning firms like Richardson and Advantex, and for the last 8 years, she's worked on the enterprise side with Grant Thornton. I'm excited for our conversation today. And drum roll, I'm also thrilled to share that Amy and I will be co-presenting live in person at the ATD International Conference on Tuesday, May 21st in Washington, D.C. So if you're in town for the conference or you're in town and just want to crash the party, come and join us. It's gonna be a lot of fun to do this live together. So Amy, welcome to Being Intrepid.
Thanks, Sam. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, Amy, let's just start with a little bit of background. You've built a really impressive career, working, as I mentioned before, both with learning firms as well as large corporations. And I always love to ask our guests, is there a key influence or a defining experience that really inspired your career?
I loved this question, Sam. It really got me thinking of where was my biggest influence? And I really think it's where I started. I think my very first job when I started in the learning field was so influential of what I did at the time, but also where I went and where I am today. And at that particular company, we really focused on computer simulation
Mhm.
and this philosophy of bringing the computer into the classroom as an adult learning tool. We talked about learn by doing. And so I spent, gosh, I think the first 7, 8 years of my time in learning space creating and delivering computer simulations, custom computer simulations was my area.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, like those types of simulations, you're either simulating a job role or you're simulating a process. And it would be these aha moments. And I mean, you could really often see it on people's faces when
Mhm.
something would hit them like, oh my gosh, like now I understand why such and such happens this way or why we do something this way. And I think I was so influenced by those moments, by those aha moments, that I thought as I moved forward, those are the kind of experiences that I'm always looking for to bring to the classroom, to bring to our learning journeys and our different programs. So
That's
I think
awesome.
that's
I
how,
mean, yeah,
yeah.
thanks, Amy. I mean, it's such a fundamental point that often gets overlooked in re learning design. That the applied learning, the practice, is really where what it's all about, practicing those skills. So thank you for that inspiration. Well, let's set the stage for your work at Grant Thornton. Can you tell us a bit about in our conversations? You've shared with me that the firm really fundamentally differentiates itself and its services through its leaders. So can you tell us about that and how you develop them through these milestone programs?
Yeah, I think you shared it in a really nice way in the way we think about leaders. And I do believe it's influenced a lot at Grant Thornton, just the space that we're in, a
Mhm.
professional services firm. I often, and a lot of us say, what we sell, our service is people. It's people
Mhm.
and their expertise. And then in order to sell our people and our expertise, it's through relationships. So when you think about leaders, what do we need to develop in our leaders? We need to develop leaders that are really good at leading and inspiring people and teams and that can build really strong, long lasting relationships with clients
Mhm.
that we're going to serve. And so when you think about those things, I've got to think about that as we could do leadership development programs and these milestone programs. Like, how can we create those well-rounded leaders that can do those things. Um, the way that we've done that and structured it over the past few years is, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but we call them milestone programs.
Mm.
So we've identified these almost pivotal career milestones in one's career journey within
Mhm.
Grant Thornton. And that milestone is often a milestone because it's a time, it's a pivotal time where I like to use this phrase like what got you here won't get you there.
Mhm.
So the skills that you need to be successful after you reach this career milestone are often different than what got you there. So we've identified these. And like, for instance, our first one is a new senior associate.
Mm.
When you become a senior associate, you're going to supervise people and teams for the first time. So
Mhm.
we need to make sure you're ready to give feedback.
Mhm.
Good, strong project management skills. How do you prioritize different things? The next milestone is manager. Well, manager, you're going to start to interact with clients. So
Yeah.
you need to start thinking about for the first time, like, what's my personal brand? What am I known
Mhm.
for? How do I
Mhm.
present that? And delegation is a big one because at that manager level, in order for you to start engaging with your clients, you need to be sure that you're letting go of all the other work that you used to do. You can do it better and faster, but you need to free yourself up and make sure you're delegating your prior tasks so you can take on your new responsibilities. So that's kind of how we've
Yeah.
identified and almost designed these milestone programs, is really identifying these key milestones and making sure that we're going to equip you, upskill you in the skills that you need to meet your new expectations and be successful in that role, but then also start to look forward of like, okay, so this is what you need to be successful in this new role. And then as you're in that role, what are the things that you need to do to get you ready for the next role? And so I think that's by
Yeah.
doing that with our different milestone programs, that's really how we set someone up along this journey. You know, obviously, if you spend your whole career here, you're going to go through several of these milestone programs um, and really set yourself up so that we can really be creating these well-rounded leaders at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's really, I love the way you describe that. I'm imagining a scaffolding where you're kind of building on from one role to the next, and I mean, constantly looking ahead, to the next thing. So, I happen to know, Amy, that you've had some award-winning success with your manager development program, or MDP. So congratulations. And a lot of times, we look back like, oh, I won the award. It's great. It was easy, blah, 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 so, but, could you unpack that for us, peel back the onion and show us, share a little bit about what your experience was like developing that, and perhaps like what were some of the obstacles you overcome in developing that MDP program?
Well, I can assure you that it was not easy. I think I have a new appreciation. Any award-winning program, there's a lot of um, blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. I think one key to success, though, and then I'll get into some of the big obstacles because there was lots of those too.
Hmm.
I think one of the big keys to success was for all of us up front realizing and acknowledging that we're not going to just build a program and
Hmm.
almost like, we're going to perfect it, we're going to tweak and then reach this point of perfection that then we're just going to deliver that same program over and
Hmm.
over. So we
Hmm.
just have to get to that point and then we're just going to repeat it every year.
Hmm.
I think we all realized early on that that's not the case, that too many things change, that
Yep.
that
Yep.
program, which was perfect in the year that we delivered it,
Yep.
something changed that in the following year, it just didn't fit.
Yep.
And we had to make some tweaks and we had to make some adjustments. So I think first key to success is just realizing that it's not going to be a static program, that it
Hmm.
is going to shift and change and tweak year over year so that we're serving the business that we're in at the time or the industry or the marketplace that we're in at the time. Um, so that was just key. I think that's just
Yeah.
key up front to anything.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then obstacles. I mean, we had many. I'm glad that you only said like, let's just pick a few. Uh, I think the first one I'd love to highlight is actually, Sam, how you and I and Grant Thornton and Intrepid came together. And I think we've mentioned that the manager development program, that MDP, it's a year-long program. And we started it, I was just checking my notes and looking back. We started it in 2018.
Mhm.
And when we started it, we did not have a tool like Intrepid. So we were delivering a year-long program with no real tool that helped us share what that
Mhm.
year-long journey was. So in order to manage that program at the time, we managed it, as I'm sure many people do even today, we managed it through email. So before, let's say we were going to have a session, whether it's virtual or in person, we'd send an email that says, here's your pre-work, get ready, here's the 3 things you have to complete, or you have to read this and do this activity. Then the morning comes, okay, here's all the materials that you need. Our event's getting started, here's what you need. And then as soon as we finished, we'd send another email. Here's the evaluation. Tell us how we did. Give us your feedback. Oh, and here's your post work. And here's when it's due. And then not everybody does it on the due dates. You have to send a few reminders. So there's more emails. So you can imagine over the course of a year and over the course of several hundred participants, it was just a really big
Yep.
administrative almost
Yep.
burden
Yep.
to manage it in this way. It was very manual. We also then, well, how are we going to track who's doing what? It was manually tracked, and all of the things were done through email. So thankfully, we were introduced to you, Sam, and your team at Intrepid, which allowed us in our next year to have a way to lay out that whole year-long journey.
Mhm.
And what we fondly call our Intrepid site for manager development program for MDP, we tell participants it's your one-stop shop. Whatever you need, whether it's the link to join a virtual event, whether it's your pre-work, if the event passed and you want to see the slides, if you want to look at any of that, that's all going to be on your Intrepid site. If you want to see what's coming next month, what's due next, how's that working? What is all that? That's all there. And I'll tell you what happened is by having that, it freed up us as a team. All that time that we were spending
Mhm.
managing things through email or manually tracking things, it allowed us to repurpose that time and focus on the learner experience and
Yeah.
the content that we were delivering. And it really then helped us elevate the program. So that's, I want to say, probably the biggest obstacle. And
Yeah.
thankfully, we've actually then repurposed that to other programs. So every year-long program that we have, all of them have an Intrepid site that lays out the entire learning journey to really enable participants to see that all in one place. So that was really the first obstacle and really set the stage
Yeah.
for the rest of the program. Um, Not to talk too much, but I think then if you ask me for the second
Yeah.
obstacle,
Please.
the second one was like, okay, now we've got the participants all laid out. They can see everything. It probably came out in our second, as we went into our second and third year, we realized that our senior leadership just had a very low awareness that the program was
Mm.
happening.
Mm. Mhm.
And that was, it's again, we sent out our announcements um, talking about the program. We posted it. We have an intranet site that talks about the program and what it is, but there just wasn't a lot of just, again, awareness, not just of the program, but what it covered and what it did. And
Yep.
so that we knew was something we needed to change. And we kind of took a 2-3 prong approach to it. We got to a point where we said, okay, how can we bring our leaders into the program? And so we did that we organized this particular year. I want to say it was probably 2019, 2020. we organized a celebration hour. So it's how we kicked off the program. And we invited our CEO and his leadership team at the
Mm,
time
mm.
to come and let's have a celebration hour. It was kind of like a happy hour. Let's toast. We had our celebratory virtual toast. Let's toast to this amazing promotion that these new managers had, and
Love
it's
it.
an opportunity for you to share your thoughts. And a lot of it was storytelling. It was really great for all of our senior leaders who have spent lots of time in professional
Mm,
services and
mm.
public accounting. We asked them, like, reflect back to when you were a manager and what's the best advice that you can give these newly promoted managers coming into this role, and being part of what we say the leadership team. And so it was a great success. In fact, we anticipated at the time our CEO was really, we intended for him to be there for 15, or I want to say 10, 15 minutes. And then he would move on. Well, he was having so much fun. He stayed the entire hour.
Wow.
His whole senior leadership team stayed the entire hour. And it was just a really great conversation. But then they knew about the program. They were
Right.
there. They were there
Right.
congratulating and kicking us off on this great program. It started us on a journey of like, okay, so we started to get some awareness, but we didn't want to end there. Then we moved into, when I said it was a 2, 3 prong approach, was then more of an awareness campaign. And that turned into quarterly newsletters. So
Hmm.
it was
Hmm.
to the senior leaders, but also if I'm a new manager, I'm a newly promoted manager that's a participant, I have my manager that I report into. So those quarterly newsletters were targeted for those managers of the participants to say, hey, do you know your direct report is part of this program? This is what we're going to cover. And each quarter, we'd say, this is the content we're covering. And here's the questions you can ask, or if you have a meeting coming up, here's something that you can cover and ask them about what they just learned in this program. That really helped start to move the needle. And then ultimately, where we closed it out was there's a lot of components to the program. I'm not going to get into it too much here. It can feel a little complicated, but it's more than just attending some sessions. There's cohort activities, there's self-paced learning, there's on the job activities. So what we did, because we need to track who's doing what and who's fully engaging in the program, we then created a Power BI dashboard of all
Mm.
of our participants and what they've completed and what they haven't. And so if I'm a manager and I have a team of maybe 4 or 5 direct reports, and a couple of them are in this program, when I go to that dashboard, it shows me just those people. Behind the scenes, if you're
Hmm.
in the
Hmm.
master, you get to see all several hundred people, but we have user rights, user privileges. So if I'm a manager, when I go, I see any of my direct reports and I can see what did they do and what did they not do.
Yep.
If I'm an office leader, I can click on that and I see every new manager in my office and what's their status? How are they progressing? And I think it was the combination of all of those things, getting them involved, letting them understand the content that we're covering, and then actually showing them the participation, because that's when we got to that point of awareness. We could then go to our senior leaders to say, can you take a look? And we want to increase our engagement in the program a little bit. Can you look at your dashboard and start sending out personal messages and encouraging these people that haven't engaged? And so that's taken us to where we are today, which is probably the highest participation and engagements we've had, but now
Yeah.
because now we have the leadership behind us, um,
Yeah.
to
It's
help us
you've
with that.
you've just created this virtuous cycle or circle there, and I just love the way you engage the senior leaders as storytelling. I mean, storytelling is such a powerful component of building culture, and getting them invested in this is just just fantastic. So and going back to the experience, it just resonates with many of our customers, come to us and they're MacGyvering something together, like with duct tape and baling wire, with email and SharePoint and this system, that system. And I think sometimes there could be a lack of empathy for what the learner is experiencing there. But once you've gone through that and reset that learner experience becomes, they're not wasting their time and their cognitive load on administrative manual things. They're just really in the flow and focus on learning. And that goes for the administrators too, like you said. I mean, we have different types of users. We have learners, we have administrators, we have instructors, coaches. And so just making it easy for people. So I'm glad we were able to help with that. Um, you've really
I will
gotten
have to
into,
say, even
no, no, please go ahead, Amy.
I'm so sorry. I was gonna
No.
say, I just realized that participant dashboard that we have too,
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of that's powered by our data from Intrepid as well.
Right.
So what we were able to set up our data feed so that we can pull in all of our completions, our engagement from Intrepid into that, which is just, again, another huge time saver. So that's actually something new within the past like year or two that we've done with
Yep.
you that's
Yep.
really helped us a lot.
Yep. Yeah, that data and being able to identify, where learners are engaging at a really granular level is really useful for like you were saying too, like for continuous improvement in the program. Like it's not static. Like you want to find ways to improve so that data helps with improvement. So, Amy, you got to beginning to talk about some of the success factors of MTP. Could you kind of just summarize, maybe for our listeners to say, what were the key ingredients for the kind of the special sauce key ingredients, and maybe with an eye towards what could be repeatable for some of our audience out there, what worked for you, and connecting it to like maybe some advice.
Absolutely. I think you were starting to talk about it before I interrupted you. I apologize, but
No, yeah, please.
I think a big part of the special sauce is really being intentional about that participant experience
Hmm.
and making that participant experience the best it can be. Uh, Something that we set up early on in our milestone programs is just when you're part of it, we want you to feel special.
Mhm.
And everything that we do is all about making it easy for you to engage, easy for you to learn, but also exciting and really just making you feel like, wow, this
Mhm.
company is investing in me. Look at all the things that they're doing to help me be successful.
Mhm.
And I think some of the things that I would share, things that other people could repeat, we'd start with cohorts. We've always used a cohort structure and we found it really successful. Now we're really intentional about how we build a cohort.
Mm.
So we have new managers. They're coming from across the United States. They're also coming from all three areas of our business. Well, actually, I would say four areas of our business. They're
Mhm.
coming from audit and assurance. They're coming from advisory. They're coming from tax. And they're coming
Mm.
from what we call internal client service, which is our more of our
Mhm.
back end operations area. So what we look to do in our cohorts is put a cohort together where you're going to be with new managers in all those different areas. Often at that point in your career as a new manager, you've kind of grown up in your business. So your network and who you know is in your business. We
Mhm.
want this program and then the ones that follow to be the opportunity for you to start to meet others. So we really are intentional about how we put together those cohorts. And we do want to try to keep it regional so that you do have the opportunities to get together. I mean, if you are in the same office, you're in the same region, that there are potential opportunities for you to get together in person. We don't always want it to be just people in your office that you might have the opportunity to meet anyway. So one of the goals is let's help you start to build your network. As you progress in the firm, it's more and more important for you to have peers and colleagues that you know, that you can call upon, that you can ask questions to in all areas of the business. You don't have to know everything. What you want to know is a person in that area of the business that you can go to. So it's a way for them to help to start building that network by
Yeah.
creating this cohort. And then by having activities that they do together so that they can really start to build some special bonds and relationships with those cohort members. Other things that we do, we recognize that networking is not always comfortable for everyone. You know, we have those that are more on that introverted side. That's like, just opening up a room and having a happy hour and saying, get to know your colleagues. That can
Hmm.
feel kind of awkward for people, especially when you've got a couple hundred individuals. So we really start to put together activities where it helps to feel more natural. So they're
Yeah.
meeting other people, but it doesn't feel awkward. It just feels a natural extension of an assignment or this activity that we need to do so that they're starting to build more and more of those bonds in their networks, but in a more natural way. And that can be really helpful. That's also part of the experience. I remember in the first few years when somebody graduates, we have what I will say we have lots of amazing content that we bring together too. But when I ask somebody at the end of a year,
Hmm.
what's the best part of that program? They're going to say, the people that I got to meet. I would not
Hmm.
have had the chance to meet those people or build those relationships without this program. So I
Right.
think that's a big part of it. The other thing is not just your peers, we bring in faculty. This is the other thing I would
Hmm.
encourage that others can repeat is we bring in our own leaders as faculty into our programs.
Hmm.
So we have two different faculty roles. What you call them doesn't really matter, but we have deans that are typically more senior leaders. They come in, they facilitate all of our programs. All of our content is delivered by our leaders. We as a learning team then do the design and put that together and talking points and slides and all of those materials, but our leaders are really the ones bringing it to life and adding their own stories. And then we bring in another faculty that we call an advisor, which is I talk about this cohort structure. Well, every cohort has a leader that
Hmm.
is then a cohort. It's like a coach, a coach, a built-in mentor to that cohort. So if, as a participant, I'm getting access and getting to see and meet leaders that I would otherwise not have a chance to, or I would not have that opportunity outside of these programs. And the wonderful thing about the advisor in particular, that coach and mentor to the cohorts, is for us at a program level, we have a built-in feedback mechanism. If we want to
Hmm.
do role playing, we want to have a discussion, if we want to talk about analyze a case study, we have that cohort leader that's going to help us, really help make sure we get at the learning points, get them practicing, provide feedback, help them be that coach and mentor. What does this person, everybody's different, everybody's development needs are different, and how can you start to personalize that feedback to really help that person to give them what they need to advance in their
Hmm.
career. So I think those kind of things around really focus on that participant experience and
Hmm.
making it the best that it can be, because it can later be what drives your reputation. And I think we also talked at one point, like we wanted our reputation to be a pull for our programs. So we didn't want to just always be pushing things out. You have to do this, you have to do that. We
Right.
wanted to get to a point where when somebody got an invitation, they were like, oh my gosh, I get to be part of one of those programs now. Um, and I
It,
think that's helped us build this reputation over the years.
I mean, I can see, I'm just listening and I can see why, because they get access to the deans, the faculty, like the experts, the mentors, and so,
Mhm.
And what you said too about building and expanding your network across the firm, which really is the lifeblood of any professional services firm, and for your ability to rise and advance your career, being able to tap those relationships for future clients. You may be an audit leader, but a client mentioned something with consulting or advisory. So who do you turn to? So it just like directly builds into the lifeblood of the firm and the skills you need to develop, the relationships you need to have. So it's just so powerful to hear how connected the learning experience is. This is not one of those learnings over here. It is like right in the
Yeah.
crosshairs of the firm. So amazing. Let's jump to impact. We've talked about the executives and their participation in this. You've got an incredible story to tell about impact. And so I just can't wait for you to tell your story about, executives can be hard-nosed about wanting to see, what the returns are. But talk to us
Yeah.
a little bit about how you have measured, how you communicate, how you measure and communicate success.
So there's a couple different levels to it that we're doing simultaneously. I think the first is as a team, we set up our own success measures.
Hmm.
Um, and we do that through, I think we all have a standard evaluation that we have. If you aren't doing that, then I encourage you to at least get to that point where you have a standard evaluation.
Hmm.
Any learning session we deliver that, we send out that evaluation. It's about 15 questions.
Okay.
But for each program, for myself and my teams, for each program, we look at those 15 questions and we really pick out the ones that like, how do we know, like, or how do we know which ones are we really going to focus on?
Hmm.
They're all important, but which ones are we really going to focus on as being our keys to success? For our new managers in that program, we picked two questions. We picked one, this program or this session, because we do it for every component, this session was a valuable use of my time.
Hmm.
Our new managers are very pressed for time. They have a very challenging utilization goal. So, utilization goal means the percentage of their hours that need to be billable to clients. And for new
Hmm.
managers, it's 75 to 80%. 75 to 80% of the hours that you work need to be billable to a client. So, there is not a lot of time. They are pressed for time. So, if we're taking them away from that and bringing them into learning, then it's got to be valuable. They've got to
Yeah.
see the value in it. So we have a scale from 1 to 5, and our bottom is like that answer needs to be 4.5 or higher. If
Okay.
it's not 4.5 or higher, then we have to reevaluate what we're delivering because it
Hmm.
needs to be a valuable use of their time.
Yep.
The next one that we look at is I learned new skills.
Hmm.
We are targeting everything that we do is targeting a certain skill. So we want to know if we were successful or not. And again, for that, it's 4.5 or higher on a scale from 1 to 5. If we're not at 4.5 or higher, we've got to reevaluate what we're doing to build that skill. So that's first what we do just to make sure we're successful. The next is we're looking at different metrics. I mentioned that utilization. That
Hmm.
utilization is what we
Hmm.
call that percentage of your hours that are billable. Well, over the years, we've tracked whether it was manual or then we got to automate it. We tracked who participated in the program. And so we know year over year, these individuals completed everything, and these individuals did not complete anything. And
Hmm.
so what we do, we've done this for about 4 years running. We've then analyzed 1 year after finishing the program,
Hmm.
what are your metrics? And so this is if you go back 4 years, and we don't just measure it that 1 year after. 4 years ago, we measured it 1 year after, but then we look at 2 years after, 3 years after. So we're starting to see this pattern, but also new classes. We're starting
Hmm.
to measure if you completed all elements of our MDP program, you have higher utilization than your peers that did not complete anything.
Wow.
The
Wow.
other metric we've looked at is managed revenue, which is In essence, it's the dollar value of all the projects that you work on at any given time. If you also completed all elements of the program 1 year later, you tend to have higher managed revenue. You're working on a larger dollar value of projects or engagements than your peers that did not. And so that's the metric that we share with our senior leaders to say, look, you want to have people that are, reaching their utilization goals. They're working on high value, high dollar amount projects. Then help us encourage participation and engagement in this program.
So I think for our listeners, this is our mic drop moment right here. Like this is like, I mean, wow. Like this is, we talk about business impact for a professional services firm, like you said, Amy, like billable utilization is the lifeblood and driving revenue under management for any particular manager or leader is those are the critical metrics. So I just love how you had the discipline to measure that and you have controls, those who went through or those who didn't finish versus those who did. I mean, that is just such compelling, clear, simple business data. So congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for being, generous with your insights and your time today. And you and I've had the pleasure of having many conversations over the years about your high impact work with leader development. And I just learn something new. Literally every time we talk, I learn a little bit more from you about your work. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow us or subscribe to Being Intrepid wherever you get your podcasts. If you've got a learning challenge that you're wrestling with, feel free to drop us a line. And until next time, keep asking the hard questions, chart your own course, and keep on learning. Thank you.